I spent years buying worms for lighters before an old Tennessee fisherman showed me this one late afternoon. He took a box of laundry detergent from his kitchen, mixed it with water, poured it on the ground, and in less than 2 minutes, the lawn was moving. Worms crawling up everywhere. I stood there watching in disbelief. That day I learned that the best lighter in the world is in your own backyard, and it costs pennies. If this is your first time here, subscribe and turn on notifications, because this channel exists to teach you what the industry prefers you never discover. Let me tell you how I came up with this method. There was a fishing spot here in rural Georgia, a small lake full of bass and catfish. Every Saturday morning, I'd stop at the same gas station, spending between $8 and $12 on a box of worms. Sometimes they were fresh. Sometimes half were already dead when I opened them. Not to mention when the station opened late or ran out of stock. You know this situation. You know exactly what it's like to arrive excited to fish and have no bait. One day, I went fishing with Clarence, a guy in his 70s who grew up on the banks of the Clinch River in eastern Tennessee. A family of fishermen for generations. His father fished for food, not as a hobby. His grandfather fished to survive. They didn't have a lighter on the corner. There wasn't a gas station open at 5 in the morning. What they had was knowledge. When we arrived at the fishing spot, I went straight to the cooler to get my cooler. Clarence chuckled and said, "You're going to spend money you don't need to." He went to the car, grabbed a grocery bag, took out an old box of laundry detergent, the kind you use for washing clothes, and walked to a grassy area near the edge. He mixed about 2 heaping tablespoons of detergent in about a liter of water, stirred well, and slowly poured it over an area of about 60 square centimeters. I timed it with a watch. 48 seconds later, the first worm appeared. In 2 minutes, there were more than 20 wriggling on the surface. In 5 minutes, I had enough worms to fish all day. He collected them all, put them in an old can with some damp soil, and we fished. That day, I caught 18 bass. He caught 23. My lighter lure stayed unused in the cooler. This stuff works on any lawn, yard, garden, or area with damp soil. And the cost of a whole session? Less than 50 cents worth of soap. Before I teach you the step-by-step process, I need to talk about something. The knowledge Clarence passed on to me is just the tip of the iceberg of what old fishermen knew about reading the water, fish behavior, and positioning. If you want to stop relying on luck and start fishing for real, I've compiled everything in the book. High-level fishing. The water game. Inside, you will find reading fresh and salt water in practice. How to identify productive zones in seconds. Structure, where the fish really are. Never waste time in neutral again. Current, tide, and water flow. The invisible engine that controls fishing. Positioning and angle of attack. What matters most? Even more than the lure. Fish behavior patterns, how to predict where they will be before casting your line. Real-time decision-making. Stop trying. Start deciding. The mindset of the high-level fisherman. The difference between amateur and professional. Everything in one place. No messing around. Straight to the point. The link is in the description. Now let me explain why this trick works. Because it's not magic. It's pure biology. Earthworms don't have lungs. They breathe through their skin. The technical process is called cutaneous respiration, and it works like this. Oxygen from the air passes through the moist surface of the earthworm's body and goes directly into the bloodstream. For this to happen, its skin needs to be constantly moist. When the skin dries out, it suffocates. That's why earthworms live underground, where there is constant moisture. But water alone doesn't flush earthworms out of the ground. Heavy rain wets the soil, But earthworms don't come up with every rainfall. What happens with soap is different. The surfactants present in laundry detergent, compounds that reduce the surface tension of water, penetrate the soil much more efficiently than pure water. They reach deeper layers, wetting the environment where the earthworm is. And here's the detail that most people don't know. When the soil becomes saturated with the solution, the pH and chemical composition of the water around the earthworm change. Its chemoreceptors, which are like noses distributed throughout its body, detect this change as a sign of danger. The earthworm interprets this as contaminated soil or hostile conditions. Its instinct is to come up, to get out of there, and it comes to the surface exactly as it would during a prolonged heavy rain, but in a matter of seconds, not hours. It's a survival trigger. You're not attracting the earthworm with food. You're activating its flight instinct. And the number of earthworms that come up depends directly on how populated that patch of soil is. In a healthy, grassy area with good organic matter, you can get between 30 and 80 earthworms from an area of 1 square meter. In a poorer area, you still get enough for a fishing trip. Now, the complete step-by-step process. The way Clarence taught me, and the way I still use it today. You will need regular laundry detergent. Any inexpensive brand will do. I use the unscented kind when possible, but I've tried scented detergent, and it works just as well. 2 to 3 liters of water, a bucket or large PET bottle, a can or jar with a lid for storing earthworms, moist soil or moss to put in the can with them. Step 1. Choose the right location. Look for an area with green grass, dark, slightly moist soil. Garden beds, tree borders, and shady areas are all good options. Avoid very dry or compacted soil. It works, but yields less. The best time is early morning or right after a light rain, when the soil already has natural moisture. Step 2. The mixture. Put 2 liters of water in the bucket. Add 2 level tablespoons of washing powder. Stir well until completely dissolved. You don't need more than that. I've tried adding more soap thinking it would work better. It doesn't. This is the right concentration. More soap can kill the worms instead of just driving them away, and then they reach the surface dead or weakened, which ruins the bait. Step 3. The application. Pour the mixture slowly, in a circle, over an area of approximately 60 by 60 centimeters. Don't pour it all in one spot. Distribute the liquid evenly across the area. This ensures that more earthworms receive the signal and come up. Step 4. Wait. You don't need to wait long. Between 30 seconds and 3 minutes, depending on the soil temperature and the earthworm population. On a hot day, they come up faster. On a cold day, it takes a little longer. But they do come up. Step 5. Collection. Pick up the worms with your hand or with tweezers if you don't like handling them. Place them directly in the can with damp soil. Don't leave them on the surface for too long. The soapy solution can dry them out if they are exposed. Now comes the secret Clarence taught me that makes all the difference. After collecting them, spray a little clean, pure water on the same spot. This neutralizes the effect of the soap on the soil, and you can return to the same place in 2 or 3 weeks and collect more earthworms. Without the spray of clean water, the soil remains altered for longer, and the earthworm population may take longer to recover. The earthworms you collect this way can last an average of 4 to 7 days in the refrigerator, inside a can with slightly moist soil. I don't recommend freezing them. They die. The refrigerator keeps their metabolism slow, and they remain alive and active when you need them. Want to boost your results? There are 3 adjustments I make depending on the type of fish I'm after. First, add a teaspoon of white vinegar to the mixture. The vinegar lowers the pH of the solution, reinforces the chemical signal that the worms detect as a hostile environment, and increases the amount that rises to the surface. I use this when I need a lot of bait quickly, like when I get to the fishing spot and need more than 100 worms. Second, if you're specifically fishing for catfish, keep the larger worms you've caught separate. Catfish respond much better to thicker, more voluminous worms. Their sense of smell is incredibly sensitive, and a large worm releases more amino acids into the water than two small ones. It's not about visual size, it's about the amount of chemical signal released. Third, if you're going to fish in cold water, winter, deep lake, cut the worm into pieces about 2 centimeters long and let them soak in salt water for 10 minutes before using. The cutting and the salt release the amino acids faster, which increases the olfactory trail in cold water, where the compounds dissipate more slowly. Now I need to address the elephant in the room. If this method works so well, if it costs pennies, if anyone can do it in their backyard, why doesn't any fishing store teach you this? Why is YouTube full of videos teaching you how to buy $20 lures, but nobody talks about this technique? I'll tell you what happened to me. When I started sharing this with friends, a guy who worked at a large fishing supply chain told me, "Dude, don't post that." He wasn't kidding. The live bait industry in the United States generates over $300 million a year in retail alone. Lighters, gas stations, fishing stores, everyone has an interest in you continuing to buy boxes of bait every week. They're not selling you worms. They're selling you addiction. And the most annoying part? Lighter worms are often collected using techniques exactly like this, on an industrial scale, and resold with an absurd markup. You pay $8 for something that costs less than 50 cents to produce. I have nothing against those who sell bait. It's a legitimate business. But you deserve to know that you have a choice. You deserve to know that the old fisherman from rural Tennessee already knew this decades ago, and this information was kept secret because no one was ever interested in making it public. That's the difference between fishing as a consumer and fishing as someone who truly understands the game. Speaking of understanding the game, let me give you some field tips that make all the difference between a mediocre fishing trip and one you'll tell everyone about. Timing matters more than most people realize. Early in the morning, between 5 and 8 o'clock, the soil is still damp from the night before, and the soap technique works best with damp soil. You get more earthworms in less time, and they come more active. Late afternoon also works well, especially in summer when the sun is no longer at its peak. Soil temperature affects the speed of response. Above 60 degrees Fahrenheit, earthworms climb up in less than a minute. Below that, it can take 3 to 4 minutes. They don't give up too soon in winter. They climb up. It just takes a little longer. Location in the fishing area. With live worms, you have an advantage in still water or with a light current. In the summer, fish stay deeper where the water is cooler. Use a heavier sinker and let the worm do the work at the bottom. In the spring, when the fish are more active near the surface, a worm floating halfway down the water works incredibly well. For trout, rainbow trout, brown trout, use small, fresh earthworms with a thin hook that doesn't crush them too much. Trout have keen eyesight and can spot dead or poorly positioned bait. For largemouth bass, place a large earthworm on the bottom with a light weight, letting it move naturally. Bass respond to movement as much as to smell. For bluegill and perch, a 1-centimeter piece of earthworm is more than enough. These are small-mouthed fish. The most common mistake I see is putting the whole worm on the hook any old way. A poorly hooked worm dies quickly, gets tangled in the hook, and the fish rejects it. The right way: pass the hook once through the worm's head, then insert it again through the middle of the body, leaving the tail free to move. This movement of the tail in the water is what will attract the fish. Another mistake: adding worms that have dried out or appear lifeless. Wilted worms release fewer amino acids into the water and have less of an active smell. If your worm is too soft or wilted, lightly moisten it with clean water before using it. It will react and become more active. Remember what I said at the beginning about Clarence and what he represented? That guy spent 70 years fishing with what nature offered. He didn't have a store, he didn't have an app, he didn't have YouTube. He had observation. He had knowledge passed down through families and communities. That kind of knowledge has almost disappeared, and what's left is being replaced by marketing for expensive products that promise results but deliver dependency. I learned from him that good fishing isn't about having the most sophisticated equipment. It's about understanding the environment. It's about knowing what the fish wants, where it is, how it thinks. And good bait, really good bait, comes from the ground, not from the shelf. And remember, if you want the complete knowledge that the industry has preferred to leave forgotten, it's all in high-level fishing, the water game. There you will learn. Water reading identifies productive zones in seconds. Structure and positioning, where the fish really is. Current and tide control uses the force of the water to your advantage. Behavioral patterns predict the fish's movements before casting the line. High-level mindset. Stop trying. Start deciding. The link is in the first pinned comment. It's the knowledge they tried to bury, now in your hands. Think about your next fishing trip. While others stop at the gas station at 5 in the morning spending $8 or $10 on a box of worms, you wake up, go to the backyard, throw 2 liters of soapy water on the lawn, and in 3 minutes you have fresh, active, and free bait. After 2 hours of fishing, your friends will ask why you're catching fish, and they're not. You decide whether to tell them the secret or keep it to yourself. The industry wants to convince you that you need to spend a lot to fish well, but a $2 box of laundry detergent will last for dozens of fishing sessions. When you learn this, you stop depending on stores. Fishing isn't luck. It's knowledge that the ancients mastered and that you've just recovered. What will change on your next fishing trip now that you know this? Subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss the next video.